Chapter 5. The Consequences of Social Reformism and General Nature of Reformism. In the first chapter, we tried to show that Bernstein's theory lifted the socialist movement's plan off its real, material base and put it on an idea-based foundation. How does this theory work when put into practice? At first look, the party actions that come from Bernstein's theory do not seem very different from the actions of social democracy up to now. In the past, the Social Democratic Party focused on trade union work, fighting for social reforms and making existing political institutions more democratic. The difference is not in what they do, but in how they do it. Today, many believe that trade union struggles and work in parliament are ways to guide and teach the working class so they will be ready to take power. From the revisionist view, the idea of taking power is seen as either impossible or useless. Therefore, they say that trade union and parliamentary work should only be done to get quick results, that is, to improve workers' lives, gradually reduce capitalist exploitation, and extend social control. If we set aside the immediate improvement of workers' conditions, a goal both our party program and revisionism share, the difference between the two views can be summed up as follows. According to our current party idea, trade union and parliamentary work are important for the socialist movement because such actions prepare the working class, creating the inner drive needed for real socialist change. But according to Bernstein, trade union and parliamentary work actually lessen capitalist exploitation. They slowly remove the capitalist character from society and bring about the social change that is desired. Looking closely, we see that these two ideas are completely opposite. From our party's current standpoint, trade union and parliamentary struggles lead the working class to realize that a basic change in society cannot be achieved by such actions alone. This realization makes them understand that taking power is necessary. Bernstein's theory, however, starts by saying that taking power is impossible. It ends by claiming that socialism can only come through trade union and parliamentary work because these actions have a gradually socializing influence on the capitalist economy. We try to show that this so-called influence exists only in our minds. The way private property and the government work in capitalism go in completely opposite directions. Because of this, the everyday work of today's social democracy has lost all real connection with building socialism. For a movement that wants socialism, trade union work and activity in parliament are very important only because they help workers learn to think in a socialist way and organize themselves as a group. But if we see these actions as the tools to change the capitalist economy into a socialist one, they not only lose their normal power, but also stop helping the working class get ready to take over power. Edward Bernstein and Conrad Schmidt are completely mistaken when they tell themselves that even if the party's work is reduced to fighting for social reforms and regular trade union work, the final goal of the labor movement is still kept alive because each small step goes beyond its immediate aim and hints at the socialist goal. This is true for the way German social democracy works today. It works when there is a strong and clear effort to take political power mixed with the trade union struggle and the fight for social reforms. But if that strong effort is taken away and social reforms become the final goal on their own, then these actions do not lead to socialism at all. In fact, they work in the opposite direction. Conrad Schmidt simply relies on the idea that once a movement starts, it cannot stop on its own because one's appetite grows with the eating. He believes that the working class will never be satisfied with only reforms until full socialism is achieved. That last idea is real, and its effect is shown by the fact that capitalist reforms are never enough. But his conclusion could only be true if we could build an unbroken chain of better and better reforms that would lead us from today's capitalism to socialism. This is nothing more than a fantasy. In reality, the chain of reforms breaks quickly, and the different ways that progress might go from there are many and mixed. What would happen if our party changed its plan to focus only on the practical results of our struggle, that is, on social reforms? Once immediate results become our main goal, the clear and uncompromising view that makes sense only when it means winning power will become more and more inconvenient. The direct result of this will be that the party adopts a policy of compensation, a way of trading political favors and taking a shy, diplomatic stance. But this way of acting cannot last very long. Since social reforms can only offer empty promises, The natural result of such a program is disappointment. It is not true that socialism will appear automatically from the everyday struggles of workers. Socialism will come because of two things. First, the problems and conflicts in the capitalist economy keep growing. Second, workers must come to understand that these conflicts can only be solved by a big social change. When revisionism denies the first condition and rejects the second, the labor movement ends up as just a group that works together for small improvements. This path leads straight to giving up the idea of class struggle. This result is also clear when we look at what revisionism really is. Revisionism does not want to admit that it is supporting capitalism. It does not join with rich economists in saying that the conflicts of capitalism do not exist. Instead, the key point of revisionism, and what makes it different from the way social democracy has acted until now, is that it does not believe the conflicts in capitalism will disappear by themselves as the economy grows. We can say that revisionism sits between two extremes. It does not expect that the conflicts of capitalism will become fully mature. It does not plan to end these conflicts with a revolutionary change. Instead, it wants to lessen or reduce the conflicts. It claims that the struggle between making things and selling them will be softened if crises stop happening and if capitalist business groups are formed. It believes that the fight between capital and labor can be managed by improving workers' conditions and keeping the middle class strong. And it thinks that the conflict between a government run by one class and society can be solved by more government control and more democracy. It is true that the current way of doing things in social democracy does not wait until all the conflicts in capitalism have grown to then try to fix them. In a true revolutionary approach, the direction of these conflicts should guide the political struggle. In fact, social democracy has fought against tariff wars and militarism without waiting for these backward forces to fully show themselves. Bernstein's plan is not based on the idea that capitalism will simply get worse because of its conflicts. Instead, it is based on the hope that these conflicts will gradually be lessened. He shows this when he talks about the adaptation of the capitalist economy. When can this idea be right? If capitalism keeps growing the way it is now, then its problems and conflicts must get worse instead of disappearing. The chance that these conflicts might lessen means that capitalism itself would have to stop growing. In short, Bernstein's theory depends on capitalism coming to a stop. But this idea makes Bernstein's theory fall apart in two ways. First, it shows a kind of dreamy, idealistic view about how socialism will be built. It is clear that if capitalism develops poorly, it cannot lead to a true socialist change. Second, Bernstein's theory turns out to be against the fast growth of capitalism that we see today. With real capitalism developing so rapidly, how can we understand Bernstein's position? In the first chapter, we showed that the economic reasons Bernstein uses to explain today's social relationships have no real basis. We saw that neither the credit system nor business cartels can truly be called ways for capitalism to adapt. We also saw that even a temporary pause in crises or the survival of the middle class cannot be taken as signs that capitalism is adapting. Even if we ignore all these wrong details in Bernstein's theory, there is still one common problem. His theory does not grasp how these parts of today's economy fit together as a living, connected whole. Instead, he takes them out of their real economic context and treats them as if they were separate pieces of a dead machine. Take, for example, Bernstein's idea that credit helps capitalism adjust. If we understand credit as a natural step in the growth of trade, and therefore as part of the conflicts that come with capitalist trade, we cannot also see it as some separate tool that helps capitalism adapt. That would be like saying that money, goods, and capital themselves are ways for capitalism to fix its own problems. But credit, just like money, goods, and capital, is a natural part of capitalism at a certain stage of its growth. It is a key piece of the capitalist system, something that helps it function. At the same time, though, it also makes capitalism's problems worse. It deepens the conflicts that already exist within the system. The same thing applies to business cartels and the improved ways people communicate and trade today. These things do not smooth out capitalism's contradictions, they actually make them sharper. Bernstein takes a mechanical view when he claims that the possible end of economic crises shows that capitalism is adapting. He treats crises as simple mistakes in the economic system, as if fixing them would allow capitalism to run smoothly. But crises are not just random breakdowns. In fact, capitalism cannot function without them. Crises are the only way capitalism can temporarily fix the conflict between endless production and the limited size of the world market. Because of this, crises are not accidents, but a natural and necessary part of the capitalist system. But even more dangerous to capitalism than crises is something hidden within capitalism's own success: the constant drop in the rate of profit. This happens not only because of the conflict between production and trade, but also because labor itself becomes more productive over time. As profits shrink, it becomes harder and harder for small and mid-sized businesses to survive. This, in turn, slows down the creation of new businesses and limits where capital can be invested, making capitalism's problems even worse. Crises are actually an essential part of capitalism. They happen as a result of how the system works, causing the value of capital to drop for a time. This leads to lower prices for production materials, some businesses stopping their operations, and eventually an increase in profits. Because of this, crises allow capitalism to restart and continue growing. If crises were to completely disappear, not just temporarily stop, but vanish forever, capitalism would not keep developing. It would collapse. Bernstein, with his mechanical way of thinking, does not see how necessary crises are. He also ignores the importance of small and mid-sized businesses constantly entering the market. That is why he mistakenly believes that their reappearance means capitalism is no longer growing, when in reality, this is just how capitalism normally functions. There is one perspective from which the world looks exactly like Bernstein describes. It is the viewpoint of an individual capitalist who only sees the economy as it affects him personally. He does not see the big picture, only the immediate effects of competition around him. To him, crises really do seem like random breakdowns. If crises stopped happening, he would have a longer chance to stay in business. He sees credit as just a tool to help him sell more. If he joins a cartel, it seems like it truly gets rid of chaos in the industry. But this is just an illusion. Capitalism as a whole does not work the way he thinks it does. Revisionism is just a theory that comes from looking at capitalism the way a single business owner would. But where does this way of thinking actually belong? It fits right into ordinary, mainstream capitalist economics. The mistakes of this school of thought all come from seeing competition only from the viewpoint of one business, instead of looking at how capitalism works as a whole. Just like Bernstein believes credit helps the market adjust smoothly, mainstream capitalist economists also think capitalism itself has the solutions to its own problems. Like Bernstein, they believe capitalism can be controlled and improved, instead of seeing its deeper issues. And just like Bernstein, they eventually focus only on trying to fix the surface problems of capitalism, rather than addressing its real contradictions. In the end, they fall into a way of thinking that holds back progress. They believe in a false dream, something that is impossible. So, we can describe the theory of revisionism like this. It is a way of keeping the socialist movement stuck in place, using mainstream capitalist ideas to support the false belief that capitalism itself will stop changing.